Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I would like to warmly welcome all and each one of you at the 14th Safety Gala, an event that for the last couple of years has been widely opening its wings and literally travel all over the world, allowing us to share our passion for a better workplace with all of you who have joined us from more than 55 countries around the globe. We do hope that during these 2 days, you have a very positive experience. Secondly, I would like to thank our core organizers, CSR Hellas, Democratic University of Thrace, Drager Hellas, the European Society of Occupational Safety and Health, the International Hellenic University, and the Association of Safety Technicians of Greece. Thank you all for your valuable support. And of course, a big thank you also for the ERA team for the outstanding organization once again. In the last couple of years, the world has experienced some disruptive events, challenging every health and safety professional in all spheres of business, tasking them with the more responsibilities as the definition of risk continues to expand, confirming once again that no company is immune to an adverse event. Definitely an important lesson was taught that in a dynamic and uncertain environment, it is not effective to have a master plan. We can only have a compass to guide us, and ultimately, if we get out of track, we have to act very quick in order to withstand the diversity and bounce again back. In this context, the role of a safety manager is becoming more and more demanding. Factors such as financial viability, sustainability, environmental, social governance, cybersecurity are just few subjects that are now being taken into consideration when developing safety strategies and practices. All that said, because I would like to especially thank all our speakers for sharing your valuable experience on how you address the matters listed on the 14th Safety Gala agenda. So in this point, I would like to pass the floor to Mr. George Savas, who will be moderating our first session, EHS under the content of social responsibility and governance. Mr. Savas is the manager of the Climate Change and Sustainable Service team of EY Cyprus. His main focus is sustainability, having managed several projects concerning ESG strategy, non-financial reporting, decarbonization transformation, designing of health and safety quality and environmental systems. Mr. Savas, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Silva. A very big warm welcome from my side too. Before starting, I would like to thank all of our speakers for making the time to join us today and share with us their views in this session, and welcome to our audience as well. As Ms. Silva mentioned, I will be the moderator for the first session today with title EHS under the content of the social responsibility and governance. Well, we are here today to analyze the EHS from a different point of view and the impact that it has if one explores it from the broader ESG perspective, or CSR as others call it. We will have a conversation on how agency can be integrated with the new era of sustainable transformation for the companies, the market, the professionals, the investors, and also the clients and the public in general. Has the CSR framing taken us forward in the EHS field, or it was deployed as an extra obstacle for the future? Expectations have changed. Investors and consumers want to see more corporate actions in this field. The traditional ESG approach has been disrupted during the last years, implying that EHS must be embedded in the overall business strategy and discussed in boardrooms. I'm excited to say that at the level of regulators and institutions, we see significant turbulence, if you allow me to say this, and big efforts for the issuing of new directives and reporting standards for sustainability disclosures. So I look forward to exploring both the thoughts of our audience, and I encourage you all to be as interactive as possible by sharing your questions in the relevant chat box. And please mention to who you want to direct the question. So who do we have with us today here? Well, as for introductions, our first speaker is Ms. Maria Alexiou. Ms. Alexiou studied law in Athens and specialized in human rights and civil liberties in international and European law at Leicester University. She is a member of the Athens Law Bar and chair of the board of directors of CSR Hellas, as well as a member of the board of directors of CSR Europe. She serves as ESG advisor of Titan Cement International at the group and the regional level, while she has served Titan Group as a CSR director since 2003. And to kickstart our session, I'm going to now hand over to Ms. Alexiou, who will share her view on sustainable business models and the impact of new regulatory frameworks on businesses and professionals. Ms. Alexiou, the floor is yours. Ms. Alexiou, please, your microphone.
Good morning from me as well. I'm really delighted to be here today with you again and share with you our current developments at the EU level. Congratulations to Management Force and all the team that is organizing this Safety Gala. I would like to share with you today my most recent experience from my participation in a very special group of experts under the mandate of the European Commission, that is the European Financial Reporting Advisory Group, that is currently developing, in the support of the European Commission's proposal for Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, the new European Sustainability Standards. For this reason, I'm going to use my screen and a presentation to follow up together what is happening right now and how EHS is really elevating under this new context, new regulatory context. So what is happening right now, we may say, starting in 2019 with the new Green Deal and the European targets for 2030, is that we see the corporate requirements regarding both transparency, but also a business approach is changing. The system is changing. And it is not only about reporting, of course. So we do have the new directive, the new proposal for a directive that will be applied from this October on and will be much more demanding regarding what is really material for each and every legal entity to report in respect to sustainability, which of course means to manage in order to report, because you cannot report something that you don't currently manage, of course. And this is also very much linked to the changes we see in the framework, the regulator framework that is related to corporate governance of sustainability. And here the change is that corporate governance is the system for any legal entity to has in place quality and effective systems to manage risks, principal risks, like safety at work is for certain sectors, for example, but also to explore opportunities.
Ms. Alexiou,
yes?
Sorry, please share your screen if you want.
Sorry, you cannot see my screen, not at all?
No.
I'm sorry. Can you see it now? Sorry. Here we are. Can you see my screen now?
It's loading. Yes, thank you so much.
Sorry that you couldn't see that so far. Okay. So where we are, we see the new legislation changing the system. There are two pieces of legislation that will be applied this year. One is about reporting and corporate transparency related to sustainability. The other is about corporate governance of sustainability and how the highest governance body of any legal entity is really guiding through the transition, the adjustment of the legal entity to the new environment. Then we do have a new proposal that is linking supply chain management and material topics like safety in the supply chain, like the safety of, let's say, contracted employees or the safety of employees of suppliers through due diligence, mandatory due diligence process that is linking large entities with SMEs within the sphere of the value chain. Last but not least is the taxonomy that we have already seen starting applying this year related to climate change, but it is not simply about climate change. The minimum safeguards of the taxonomy for each and every sector link on the minimum that should be applied regarding business ethics and human rights. Last but not least, all this is also connected with sustainable finance. So the investors community, the banking sector, the insurance sector should also adapt sustainability criteria to judge and make decisions regarding future investments. So we have two key drivers coming at the same time from the side of regulation and the side of investor community and banking sector that link to the same requirements imposed to start with large entities and listed companies, but of course through the due diligence process to expand throughout the market. So here you have the steps and the piece of legislation that is coming out and is applicable at national level as well, because, for example, the taxonomy is applicable directly through the delegated acts in the national environment. So for the taxonomies, we would not expect a special transposition law or a period to adjust. For the directives that are coming, we will have something like 18 months to take these new directives and make them applicable at national level. So by the end of this year, but also beginning of next year, we will have a set of new requirements for all listed companies, a period for transposition up to 2024, and the full compliance by 2026 through the due diligence process throughout value chains. There is a very, very dynamic process right now to define and to specify all these standards. What will be the standards and the criteria to judge all the aspects of sustainability factors? Who are the sustainability factors? How we define sustainability factors? What we take, of course, as the foundations for this system is the existing management systems of health and safety, management systems for quality and service of our customers, management systems, advanced management systems and best practices for managing environmental impacts. So all the expertise we currently have on material issues like safety, like health, like how we manage environmental impacts, how we manage social impacts, is the ground to build the future standards that will filter corporate performance and sustainable and finance in general. What are the business models we try to create? Business models that have sustainability in the core. They take under consideration both sector agnostic and sector specific material issues on three pillars: environmental pillar, social pillar, governance pillar. For each legal entity, depending on which sector, on which country, on which environment, certain material issues exist in each and every pillar. This should be recognized by the legal entity and, of course, managed. Impacts are negative and positive. And negative impacts, like the impacts we have in the area of safety at workplace, can be considered as non-adverse impacts. That's why the minimum safeguards of this system is based on this, that we should eliminate any action we take that provokes a non-adverse impact and focus on how we will reduce non-adverse impacts of our operations. Either this is on people, or this is on environment, or this is in economy through non-good and responsible business practices. So everything is connected, and this legal entity has a proportionate impact on the negative factors or the negative outputs of this operation and the positive impact as well. Allow me to say that the important thing, as you may see here, is not really to measure what we tend to see when we see sustainability as only compliance to report data. It's not about that. It's what you have behind the data. If you don't have systems in place, if you don't have skills in place, if you cannot cover all material aspects for your own operation, you cannot justify that your business model, the business model you follow, is sustainable. And of course, the judgment is about how the management of the company has really embedded this aspect, this approach, and has the quality and the capability to manage this in all its material aspects. So for each, let's say, system that we might see, this new compulsory framework will direct where do you look and how to relate your mission, your operations with your long-term impacts. And social impacts are at the core. Allow me to say, for sure, climate change is the priority, and the taxonomy as it is right now as a first piece of work is leading us to see the sectors related to how they link to climate change. But the minimum safeguard of the climate change taxonomy is social impacts. So the social impacts are at the core, and social impacts here are the human rights, the labor rights, diversity and inclusion. But if we go further down, you will see also here how this change of the system is changing the acknowledgement of material issues, particularly if we look to those companies who are the standard setters in sustainability, the leading companies who are already leveraging their business model so as to be defined as sustainable business model, and where they really look. As you may see, number one material issue for the leaders right now is business ethics. And business ethics is, how do I think? How do I act in business in general? It is like, what is my belief that drives also the way I do business? It's not only about values, it's really my approach to business to be more long-term than short-term. Then number two is employee incentives. How employees will engage in this transformation of minds, culture, and systems. How? The system change within companies is fundamental. Then you have number 3, greenhouse gas emissions and reductions, because if we don't have number 1 and number 2 in place, then the rest will not happen. So what will be the system? What is the architecture of the system? From the right side, from the left side, you see the minimum reporting framework that will be required by all companies in one way or another. What this defines, it defines global issues. Health and safety at work is a global issue. Any legal entity should have this as a material topic. Sector-specific issues, meaning that for some sectors, some topics like health or like safety or like health and safety or like safety in the value chain or whatever is more material. And of course, in the country-specific topics, which means that if the legal environment of any country is less than the European average, then you have a country-specific issue related to this topic. So health and safety in some countries, due to the less maturity of the regulation compared to the EU standards or the international standards, will be, let's say, less privileged, because the companies in this country would be really more challenged with the advanced standards, because now any legal entity will not be really expected to comply with the country specific. It will be expected to comply with the global specific. That will be also EU specific standards. So what is changing now and what is driving this change is that we don't want to comply through this framework with the country specifics or the country laws. This is not the case anymore. We want to comply, and we will be compared with the performance against European and international norms and standards. And the influence of the finance in this as a driver is huge, because here you see just a very short view of what is going to be fueling the transition process and the transition mechanism, not really coupled by the interest of institutional investors and investors from all the world regarding the next years. What is happening, of course, right now, as I said, is we put a lot of attention on climate change and investments related to energy, but the core issue is social impacts. And we need to further analyze and understand what the changes are. So the new system actually recognizes equal, or let's say relevant, interests of employees, customers, communities, and suppliers in terms of corporate sustainability. So in the social taxonomy that is coming also, and we have seen already the proposal for a social taxonomy that will be related with the financing of investments, you see here that if you're, let's say, an energy company, it's not enough to have a business plan and CapEx and OpEx that will be aligned with climate change mitigation criteria or climate change adaptation criteria. You have to realize with evidence the minimum requirements that the social taxonomy will require depending on your proportionate impact. So the framework is the OECD guidelines for multinational companies and responsible business conduct, but also the UN guiding principles on business and human rights, including ILO standards. So the cost, is it a cost or is it an investment, all that? We expect for sure that the reporting requirements will increase the cost. It takes quite a lot of effort to standardize the processes inside the company, to standardize the sources of data, to organize the data, to decide what data is really meaningful and material to measure. And all people here know how difficult it is to record data, to keep data, to verify data, to read data and use data to build scenarios for what is going to happen with risks. We expect that, of course, the cost will increase, but we need to see whether this is really a cost or it is an opportunity. And this depends on whether we really see that as part of the business strategy. So this is just a few of the relevant directives, EU directives and legislation that is linked to the social taxonomy, just to take a flavor of what this is covering and linking, because at the end, these are linking in one system that the companies should follow, should cover, and should manage, not for compliance reasons, but for building, in order to build its capacity to manage in a more holistic way both the risks and the opportunities. So this is from my side. I don't know if I have some time left that we can ask.
Just some time, actually. Thank you, Ms. Alexiou. That was a very insightful presentation. And now I will continue with a welcome to Ms. Elena Thousaki. Ms. Thousaki is the head of ESG, Sustainability and Climate Change at Motor Oil Group. She held sustainability leadership positions globally and serves in several executive roles at international corporations. She has completed a full-time MBA at Alba, MA at Middlesex, and executive programs at Oxford Business School and the London Business Schools. Ms. Thousaki, please do tell us more about what we can expect in the transformation from the EHS to sustainability. Over to you, please.
Thank you, George. Thank you very much for the organizers. Good morning, everybody. I'm always scared when I hear my friend Maria, to be really honest, when she's actually telling us all about these new regulations that are coming, or taking like a flavor, as she actually said. But it is true. It is true. And what I want to do today is to discuss a little bit how, from a corporation point of view, actually a corporation point of view is actually looking at all these new regulations coming and how these are affecting basically our strategy and our business goals and going forward. As you know, Motor Oil is it's a company that is, it's a big corporation that is related to, of course, refining, retail and station within oil and gas industry, but also what we do right now, because of course, one of the regulations, and second, of course, because of the how consumer preferences are changing, is we're going towards a different type of business model, which is about, investing more in, renewable and alternative energy. So we're becoming more like a multi-energy company, I would say. So I'm really sorry that the phone is ringing right now. So what I think that is good to discuss a little bit is about what happened a few years ago with regards to the CSR and how the CSR, let's say, concept actually moved more into sustainability. So as you probably know that, many years, I would say a decade ago, companies are more like into, only, community, social responsibility issues. And gradually what the business is doing is actually involving more and more, departments into the sustainability sort of business side. So things have changed. So sustainability now is not just like a small sort of department, part of a corporation, but it's actually an important department that is usually sits, to be really honest, close to the either financial or to the strategy. Now, in Motor Oil, what we do as a sustainability department, we close very, regularly. We're very close, and we work very regularly with the EHS departments. because we think that the EHS is actually a core element of sustainability. And I think what has happened in the past is that the EHS department have been sort of like a little bit isolated, doing more like work on certification and some kind of procedures and policies and anything to do with putting some kind of goals like we do. But it was a little bit more isolated from the business side. Now things have actually changed, and the EHS departments have become actually, 80%, I would say, from the content of on sustainability report is coming from the EHS department. So their contribution is extremely important. So I think that what we see now is more like an intersection between the EHSS and sustainability. And I think what we also see is that, the importance of EHS working in order to create, let's say, new strategies, policies, procedures, tools, or, targets even with the sustainability department in order, let's say, to be able to discuss this with the board and come up, let's say, with a strategy that it's future-proof. So in motor oil, this is how we actually work, and this is what I wanted to share with you. That on the more tangible, let's say, more like on the practice level, is that the people from EHS, they're work very close with the financial department and the sustainability department in order, let's say, to come up with a good reporting for the investors, because as Maria said, is the investors now are very much under pressure to be compliant with the EU regulations. And when you have an investor that is under pressure under the sustainable finance directive and all the other directives that are coming, they become very demanding, and the sort of information they are looking from the companies. And not only that, what we actually see is that financial institutions are becoming a lot aware of what is happening on the EHS side in many industries, of course, including oil and gas. And we have been very surprised that we see people from the financial side to be able to say to discuss on the same level with our EHS department. So on the technical side, and sometimes, even the auditors are becoming, even from the Big Four, are becoming very much, they're scrutinizing, our procedures and our reporting and our numbers of what we say and how we actually we deal, let's say, with the procedures and the procedures and the strategy and the manuals that we actually put forward. So what I want to say basically is that the future the future is going to change, and we're going to involve more towards an embedded sustainability, as I usually say. So it's not only, of course, the EHS department. There are many departments that we actually see that are becoming, extremely important for the sustainability strategy of the company. And what we also see is that a lot of from EHS department coming to sustainability department, all right, because they want, of course, to be able to say, to share this knowledge. But what we don't want to see, of course, is that the EHS departments to become the sustainability department, because sustainability should have and should involve important strategic management decisions. They should be in a position to discuss, with the board and within the financial department, and of course with the strategy going forward. So it's not about only reporting and of what is happening now, but the sustainability department needs to be able to say, working with other important departments, needs to be able to say to influence decisions of how the company is going to go forward and how it's going to respond, first, of course, to the regulators, but also to the consumer demands and to the stakeholders. So I think that things are changing. I think that EHS is extremely important, and they have the knowledge and the way of thinking about, how to create, let's say, policies, how to create manuals, how to train people, like, we do in motor oil. And therefore, they become extremely important as part, let's say, of our governance. For instance, we have 3 committees. We have one EHS committee, we have another sustainability committee in motor oil, we have another committee, which is, it's not a committee, it's more like a working group. So, and in all these committees and working groups, EHS is an important element, and they are, they have a strong input, let's say, on a weekly basis, to be able, let's say, to cooperate with any sort of issues that may actually arise. On top of that, what we actually see, it's a lot of pressure coming with regards to climate change issues, for instance, and the risks around climate change. Again, important colleagues, coming, let's say, from the EHS department, working together with us in order to be able to say, to respond to this kind of risk management. Even the EHS integrated management system that we have can be actually extended in order to include sustainability related matters. So there is an interconnection between sustainability in EHS department. And to be really honest, in many cases, there is always, of course, a strong relationship where we actually go together to be able to say, to respond to a very serious, strategic, and business-oriented objectives or issues. And with this, I think that I'm very happy that this is happening. We are able sometimes to influence important decisions within the strategy, but also to be able to help our company in order, let's say, to reduce costs or even to increase revenues. So back to what Maria said, I think that at the end of the day, it's basically it's more an opportunity. What is coming. And unfortunately, sometimes we have to have so many regulations, so many directives in order, let's say, to start thinking of how we can redesign the way that companies work, even when it comes to the big corporations. On that, I would just wanted to share with you some things that we have in motor oil, for instance, the Goal Zero objectives, because as we are a refining, storage, distribution, and marketing petrochemical products, you can imagine that it's extremely important health and safety as part of materiality, sustainability issues, and therefore we give a lot of credits there, and we pay a lot of attention. We have this Goal Zero objective. No harm to people, no loss of human life, no significant incidents to the environment and company's reputation. And we also, have improved and we continuously create new policies with regards to EHS. We're looking always the best practices. Doesn't mean that because we're a big corporation, we don't, look outside, but we think that we also are able to create new practices. And we discuss a lot with our suppliers and our other stakeholders how we can actually improve towards sustainability strategy and reporting. And last but not least, I can always mention, of course, the risk management part and the technological insights that we have and the digitization that we go through our EHS department. So we actually spend a lot of time and we invest a lot in digital transformation and trying to, make it as efficient and effective as possible. And of course, on the training side, but what I think is also important for you to understand is that we have actually put EHS as part of our remuneration policy and performance assessment on the management level. So this is how much important is for us the EHS issues with regard to sustainability. So I think we have embedded a lot, but a lot of things needs to be addressed in the future, and we definitely have a room for improvement. With this, I would like to end. Thank you very much, George, again. And if there is any question, I'm happy to answer it. just because I cannot stay for a long time as you know. So if you want to take a question now, I would be happy to answer it now.
Thank you, Ms. Hatzaki. That's also another point of view, which I'm sure will broaden our discussion at the end of the session. As you mentioned, you have to leave earlier. I have a question for you. Well, HSE versus ESG, these are complementary or contracting? How do you think that will change the role of HSE professionals?
That's a very good question. As I said, I think they're definitely complementary. They're not contradictory at all whatsoever. And I think that, as I said, the professionals on the EHS are extremely important, and they need to elevate a little bit, with regards of what their profession is doing in the future. So I think that they need to see themselves more as a part of the strategy and sustainability strategy, and less on the technical and operational side. So I think the future of EHS professionals is extremely good, to be really honest. But the people that they will actually go into the next level, these are the people that need to be trained a little bit more on the business side, on the strategy side. So I definitely encourage, if people are listening now, that to invest in the EHS people with regards to the business management, financial side, because these people need to understand a little bit how the investors think. And if they understand, because they're very capable people there, then they will be able to come up, let's say, with very effective strategies and procedures and ideas in order to help the sustainability department to excel of what has been asked to do.
Thank you. And actually, this is for sure something that will transform the professionals. The regulations will have a tremendous impact to HSE. And if I connect this with what Ms. Alexiou's presentation was showing to us, and if I share with you what Ms. Alexiou mentioned to me earlier, HSE professionals can play the role of subject matter experts from now on. We see an impact and an important change to the system. Well, we can discuss this on the questions later. Thank you for your participation one more time, Ms. Hatzaki.
Thank you.
And for the last part of the opening session, but not less important, we have two speakers from Olympia Odos. With us today is Mr. George Kazadzopoulos, and he will give us some content on the topic Olympia Odos and environmentally sustainable national infrastructure. Mr. Kazadzopoulos is an international expert in sustainability and environmental responsibility. In November of 2005, he established Global Challenges, a pioneer company in the fields of sustainability and environmental responsibility. And since 2008, he is serving as the environmental manager for Olympia Odos. In the same part of our session, we have Mr. Konstantinos Papakostas. Mr. Papakostas has a diploma in mechanical and aeronautics engineering from the University of Patra, an MBA from the Hellenic Open University, and since 2014, he is the Quality Health and Safety Manager of Olympia Odos. Mr. Papakostas will provide his experience in the field of health and safety and will expand the topic of safe together sustainability via occupational safety. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like, on behalf of Olympia Odos, to thank the organizers, Management Force, and CSR Hellas for inviting us to share our experience and learnings from walking the environmental sustainability walk, and not only. As Mr. Savas said, our presentation will be divided in two sections. One will cover environment and the other will cover health and safety. We will try to bring in front of you the best practices Olympiados is undertaking in the field. As you all know, Olympiados is a major motorway, is a major national infrastructure, which was initiated in its full extent back in 2017, after passing through many phases. But now we do believe that since 2017, we are offering the opportunity to all the users, to all the citizens, to have a safe passage through this motorway that covers 202 kilometers. And as probably most of you have heard, since last month to this project, there has been an addition, the section of Patra-Pyrgos, which will cover another 75 kilometers. Building, studying, building and operating a motorway, it's not an easy equation. It's a very complex, it's a very complex case that requires the involvement of many stakeholders, and definitely has many impacts, positives and negatives, to all the sphere that is covered by the term sustainability. As you see in front of you, road safety, travel experience, human resources, society, and environment do play a significant role in building, constructing, and operating a motorway. And there you can definitely find many fields and lines where the social, environmental, and financial compliance has to be strategic, corporate, and government ethics, partnerships, and anti-competitive behavior, and definitely the economic performance. During these years, while we've been constructing and operating Olympiados, we have been taking into account many aspects of our interference with the social and natural environment. And in that way, when the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals came in force, and we had by default to adhere to them, we found ourselves with our stakeholders, our partnerships, social, academic, technical, and so on. We found ourselves in a rather favorable position. So in the way that we could definitely touch upon at least 7 SDGs in a rather constructive way. Our environmental policy is practically is highlighting our belief that environmentally sustainable roads infrastructures represent an investment in the long-term prosperity of both planet and society. In a time of growing environmental concerns, with sustainability being a very important aspect of all current activities, protecting the environment is a collective duty. And as any large-scale project, Olympiados as well entails potential impacts to the national environment, which need to be considered and need definitely to be minimized. To that end, the respect and protection of the environment is an integral part of the operation and maintenance of the motorway. In this very point, I would like to agree to the very end and to hold the things said by Mrs. Alexei and Mrs. Athusaki regarding the influence of sustainable financing. I've been working with the project of Olympiados since 2008. And during the last year and a half, when our company has been into the discussion of reintegrating the Patra Pyrgos project, we have seen a tremendous change of the behavior of the financial organizations towards the environmental and not only aspect of the project. We have been, and the financial organizations from the European investment banks to international and Greek banks have been very diligent in seeing how our company will deal not only with environmental topics, but also with social topics, let apart the governance that is definitely, or was always definitely, into the spot of any financial decision. And we anticipate that this care from the financial institutions will be much more careful from now on. Definitely, ladies and gentlemen, a motorway has many impacts. Most of them are obvious, some of them are not so obvious. Olympiados is using as a tools the current legislation for environmental protection, the environmental impact assessment studies and the terms of the project, the international best practices, and so on and so forth. I would not try to describe all the actions we are doing because many of them are practically are deriving from our obligation to comply with environmental legislation. I will only like to highlight certain priority areas which do not fall directly into the obligations, but rather they are beyond the contractual agreements and obligations. And these are in the fields of energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions, tackling mainly climate change and showing the contribution of the company towards the combat for climate change. It's about waste and waste management, about water and how we minimize water pollution and biodiversity. And in order, Mr. Sava, not to lose much time in this, excuse me for that, I would I would mainly focus on our efforts to minimize our energy consumption, thus minimize the carbon footprint of the motorway. During the last 3 years, we embarked in a journey to minimize the energy consumption, and we started with a benchmark project, which was the change, the modification of the lighting in 17 tunnels. We retrofitted the tunnels with LED technology, and the main results were that the driving conditions for the drivers have been improved. We have more than 45 energy used in order to feed these new features, and more than 4,000 tons CO2 equivalent that are not emitted due to the new technology we are using. This is complemented with an effort the top management of the company has put in order to shift to the conventional, from the conventional resources energy to energy coming from renewables. And in that perspective, Olympiados since 2019 is covering the totality of its electricity needs through green certificates. And this definitely reduces the carbon footprint of our operation on a daily basis. In that direction as well, I would like to highlight that sustainable transportation for a motorway is one key element. And in that direction, Olympiados has been probably the first national motorway infrastructure that introduced electric vehicle chargers, as well as had as an obligation for the motorist service stations operators to provide all types of fuel, thus boosting the sustainable transportation trend that is coming from the European legislation and so on. Let me close my brief intervention regarding environment in Olympiados with something that is interesting and a little bit different. We have bats in Olympiados. One of our key areas of attention is protecting biodiversity. Of course, we are not in, hopefully, and that's good that we are not in a jungle, but we're located along an area which is very populated, but in one certain location of our motorway, which is close to Patra, and I would not like to reveal the exact location. We have big colonies of bats populating tunnels that were used for the irrigation of this area. And we are very happy to coexist with them in these tunnels. Of course, don't expect to see bats along the tunnels where you are driving. We are trying with our partners in a Life Grecabat project, the University of Crete, Helmos Coast Management Body, and Ministry of Environment, to make sure that this special species of fauna will still coexist with the human activities, and that that a major infrastructure like Olympiados is taking care of, hands-on taking care of the environment, of the biodiversity, by introducing strict regulations on how we operate around this area, and how everyone can assist in protecting the environment. This is what I would like to share with you regarding environment and Olympiados in this short time frame, and I would like to thank you for attending the gala. Thank you, Mr. Saba, for coordinating.
Thank you, Mr. Papagostas. Can you please share your view?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sava. First of all, I would like to thank CSR Hellas and Management Force for, and also congratulate for this really, really interesting event. Please let me share my screen. I would like to spend a few words for our project first. Olympiados is a project of 200, almost 202 kilometers, fully operational. Recently, as George Kazantzoglou said before, there were 75 more kilometers towards Pyrgos added. There are 11 motorist service stations, 2 traffic operation centers, 4 technical bases. But why am I saying these numbers? We have 550 personnel working on a daily basis in shifts for the routine maintenance and operation of the motorway. But in addition, there is the heavy maintenance of the motorway. So we have local subcontractors for the maintenance of the company. Around 300 people working on the maintenance works of the motorway. During the construction of Corinthos Patras, this huge project, at the peak of the construction phase, there were more than 300 people working at the same time for the project. So, as you can imagine, these people are living in the local societies. These people were participated in the local communities. Local business were benefited. There was development and growth in the local communities. So consequently, a sustainable project is directly linked with a sustainable local community. Therefore, we cannot consider Olympiados as a sustainable project without ensuring the sustainability of the local communities. The strategy for sustainable infrastructure projects, especially for our project, which is a linear project, 200 kilometers passing through all these towns, all these communities, this strategy is based on 5 pillars, one of which is the society, as you can see in the picture. As you may see, there are many objectives for the sustainability development announced by the United Nations related with society. But what is the link between occupational safety and sustainability? How can we talk, I would rephrase this question, how can we talk about sustainable projects or growth of local communities if people of the communities who work on these projects are facing high risks during their activities? Or even worse, how can we promote a modern and high-tech project if workers return injured to their home? Imagine the impact to a society if one member of this society is heavily injured during his work. So we have to understand that it's obvious that the sustainability of the project is directly linked with the conditions the personnel face while working for the construction or operation or maintenance of this project. Olympiados has come up with certain occupational health and safety principles for its activities in order to enhance the project's sustainability. So I would like to present some of the practices that we apply, we are currently applying, and provide us with specific tools to enhance this sustainability. Of course, we have adapted the health and safety minimum requirements of our major stakeholder, Vinci, and customized these requirements as per our own needs. We have developed an integrated management system focusing on the continuous improvement of the working conditions, of course, in terms of occupational health and safety. And of course, all these aiming to the provision of a healthy and safe work environment for our employees, but also for the contractors and for the partners that take place in this project. We have adapted the COVID-19 measures, not only the measures that required from the legislation, but measures beyond our legislation, in order to protect not only the employees, but also the users of the motorway when we provide the services to these users. We have a clear definition of occupational health and safety specifications in the contracting agreements. You know, when we have subcontractors or service providers in our project, we have to transfer our own mentality, our own principles to there as well. So there are clearly occupational health and safety specifications in the contracts. We also provide, either we provide ourselves training to the contractors, not only to our personnel, as in the framework of the legislative norms. No. We're talking about providing training to the subcontractors, providing training to the service suppliers, for special cases or for cases that need special attention, high risk tasks. Of course, we audit and inspect our works, our subcontracting works, and of course we evaluate the performance of these works, the performance taken over by the subcontractors, and we measure this performance of the subcontractors. In addition, we have come up with 10 rules, 10 for the construction maintenance and 10 for the operation and routine maintenance, 10 non-negotiable rules with regard to occupational health and safety. we have come up with a specific methodology to investigating incidents, not only accidents, but also near misses, with cause tree analysis, etc. And after that, we create these safety flashes to notify the whole community, the whole network of the shareholders of Vinci, which is really, really interesting to see how this knowledge is diffused along the world. Of course, the link between safety performance and sustainability for companies, organizations, but also states authorities to acknowledge the safe management as part of the overall strategy. Consequently, global efforts for the improvement of the safety performance can only result to sustainable organizations. And this was my part. If there are any questions, I will be really happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kazadzopoulos and Mr. Papakostas. Your examples gave us a lot of food for thought there. There is no question that the various regulations, and particularly environmental regulations, can have a tremendous impact on a company's submission of words for long-term growth and marketplace access. By connecting all the previous information shared by our speakers and the practical examples mentioned by Mr. Kazadzopoulos and Mr. Papakostas, we could say that the companies need to take the steps and anticipate sustainability regulations across all the different pillars of their projects. This will lead to a significant return on investment, as well as the social return on investment, and this can be identified by the increasing interest of investors in ESG ratings. In general, are the companies, but also the HSE professionals, prepared for what it comes to deal with the potential environmental, social, and governance-based regulations we have for business ecosystems? Well, if we continue with the questions from our audience, Mr. Papakostas, as our session's title states, EHS under the content of governance. From your perspective, is this implemented in the various industries? Can you give us an example?
You know, each industry has its own particularity. Each industry has its own, although there is a global tense, although there are international standards and legislation to be applied by everyone, each industry has its own particularities and creates its own principle and its own way of working. This is the reason that any directive or any standard is not clearly defining the rules or the regulations or the practices, but also they are helping everyone to create its own needs. But in fact, it is widely seen in the infrastructure. I would talk for the infrastructure strategy for the infrastructure market, that we see that this health and safety, and I'm sure that George Kazadzopoulos will talk about environment as well, is something that is quite changing from time to time. This mentality, okay, is changing. We are currently facing so many difficulties, so many disruptive. This is a disruptive era at the time, but everyone is trying to adapt new practices, to adapt new procedures, to adapt new mentality. New technical tools are applied, but yes, I would be optimistic about the future, at least for the infrastructure sector.
Thank you. Ms. Alexiou, in your last slide, you said that the average recurring investment is €30,897. what are the provisions for small and medium-sized companies to A, afford this investment, and B, make profit out of this investment and keep this transformation sustainable? Can you comment in a simple way, please?
Thank you. Let me tell you, first of all, that answering your previous question regarding if we are ready to move in the transition we design either through the sustainable finance, let's say, perspectives or the regulator perspectives, unfortunately, we are not ready. We are happy that in the panel and maybe among the audience and maybe among CSR LAS, we have members and organizations and particularly companies who are leading the way, but we are not there yet. Imagine that the number of companies in Europe that is already moving towards this, let's say, transition in a more systematic and strategic manner as the one we discussed is only something like 1%, 2% of the companies that should go where we discussed today. We are lagging behind a lot to what we need to achieve by 2030, and the objectives and the goals, targets and sub-targets are very specific to be met by 2030. That's one thing that we should keep in our mind. And then the big question is, what about SMEs who are today the majority of the European economy, not only the national economy, and who represent 60%, more than 60% of total employment in Europe? How this process will become inclusive for SMEs that are really the core group? And here you will find that many listed companies in the Greek Stock Exchange, for example, are SMEs for the European index. Construction companies that we are talking about today for European market, that is one market now, in terms of sustainable finance and conditions and requirements, are small or medium size. Are we ready? No. We need to run fast, and professionals who already work in the field of sustainability factors I mentioned today, and the key factors are impact on environment, climate, water, biodiversity, waste, all the harm that is evidence now through science, that is harm we produce for the environment, all the harm that we have recognized we can cause from the operations to the people. In the core of this harm, you have health, safety. Only for our employees? No, for all employees is the rule to safeguard and not do any harm to the people. But also communities and customers are in the same scope. So now health and safety is not only at the workplace, as a mindset for sustainability, it applies to the key stakeholders. So in my mindset, I have to take care of the health and safety of the community. Like it happened with the COVID, actually. Lots of businesses have turned to business professionals, health and safety professionals, to update their standards, their processes, their systems that will protect also communities around them through right? As an indirect impact. That is what is going to happen. And in the core of this evolution, subject matter experts are called all the people, like the people working in health and safety, like the people working in climate change, like the people working, as I do, in human rights and CSR social aspects. We are the subject matter experts. We are the ones to help companies, small, medium, and large, to understand first of all, and then to build this new business model.
That can be the motto of the day, actually, I will say. Yeah, thank you so much. Mr. Kazadzopoulos, how does the motorway and its specific environmental standards manage to reduce emissions? Isn't this an issue of the motor and fuel industry? It's a challenging question, I think.
No, Mr. Sava, it's not so challenging. Definitely, the usage of the motorway as such by the users, by us, the drivers, falls under the scope 3 of any carbon emissions calculation exercise. And there, definitely, yes, the motor and fuel industry do play the significant role. Also, a significant role is undertaken by the choice of each and every driver to shift slowly to a more sustainable transportation mode, i.e. Electrical or hybrid vehicles. But this is something definitely we, as the owner of the project, cannot impact directly. Whereas our intention and efforts focus in the fields we can directly impact, such as I said previously, the change of the conventional lighting equipment with more energy efficient equipment, or the project that we're about to start implementing. It's about a smart lighting system in all open sections of the road, where during the night time and when there is no traffic, lighting will be minimized to the safe driving mode, and this will reduce again the carbon footprint of the motorway. All these efforts we are doing are not prescribed by any legislation. It's our intention, is the intention of Olympia Odos and its shareholders, local and international, to put a small stone into the combat of the international combat for climate change. And I would add, also answering another question that has been
I will connect that with what you said before about your contractors. Since you want to add one small stone each time, continuous transformation, what about the small contractors?
Correct, and this is why this is where Mrs. Alexiou remarked about the importance of touching on SMEs comes into light. Of course, we as the operator, the owner of the project, we cannot change from one day to another to the other how the small or bigger contractors of ours operate. But as Papakostas mentioned before, in our contracts with any contractor of any kind of service, health, safety, and environment are meticulously mentioned. And we are imposing certain procedures that are, again, exceed the normal regulations, and we are influencing we would hope to a major extent how small and medium contractors behave vis-a-vis these subjects touched by ESGs, from governance to social, health, safety, and environmental issues. So there is definitely an osmosis between how a big entity like corporate like Olympia Odos, in a way, and smaller dependents can work together and make this change a little bit smoother for the benefit of the society, definitely.
Okay, I have one question for Ms. Alexiou, since she's also working with CSR Hellas and CSR Europe, and if she wants to also continue what Mr. Kazatzopoulos said, we all know HSE as a regulatory obligation. With the increased interest on ESG, how well do you think companies are integrating this in their social responsibility strategies? Is this topic really in the agenda of board meetings?
Thank you for the question, and also thank you for giving me this right to comment also what was said earlier. It is evident that no company, no matter how big, how powerful, how advanced or mature is in sustainability, cannot change the business model in the sector that operates or in the market that operates. So we put a burden actually on companies to do more, to regulate their own ecosystem, also to pass these values and principles in their supply chain and in their business partners, the ones at least that the interdependence is high. That's what we ask them to do. If we agree that no company can do that, and even because I'm a lawyer, I see many contract agreements and allow me to say no contract agreement can really pass the spirit or the know-how or the experiential, if you like, know-how you are having as large companies or in large companies building on health safety, building on sustainability, to pass it through a contract. So we have to agree that it's only through collaboration that we can manage this. So that's what we do in CSRLS. And we have started studying the sector issues because each sector, allow me to remind you, has specific priorities to start with. In some cases, we see all this complexity and we lose focus. Is all important for me, is all material for me, but this cannot happen. We have to focus on what is material, first of all, for each sector. So we have started a program where we invite our members and sectors to discuss what is really material, recognized as material today for each sector, in order to help companies then, either leading in one sector or in the average, to see where they stand in a more specific benchmark, allow me to say, because that's how companies improve. It is there you can see also where you build collaboration in the supply chain, where you start investing in the supply chain. So in the question, is it a cost to report high? For me, it is very high today, if it is just to report. If it is an investment that will help to learn, help to use the data to manage the business, it is all about. And to use the data to have business plans with the right investments in the future. Because if you see what is asked by investors, they say, tell me the investments you need to do, not only in one dimension, in 3 dimensions. What will be the investments for the social aspects from now on? It is a plan to integrate in a green bond, for example, if you train your transporters to measure their scope 3 emissions, to utilize best practices for reducing road accidents and become sustainable.
Very clear.
Can we design new business plans? Can we design bonds that will be responsible and green bonds to elevate the market? It is our market. It's our business. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Here I will have to close the discussion, and due to the limitation of time, essentially what we need in our field are companies and professionals to view and use EHS in a transformative way and integrate it within their corporate sustainability strategy. I think we all agree on that. I would like to thank you very much. It was a great panel with some useful thoughts on leadership and opinions on EHS and ESG. Ms. Silva, I think we are on time. Please, back to you.